The fog hung thick over the downtown lake that morning. Lucas Harper saw her thrashing in the freezing water, alone, going under. He didn't think. He dove in, dragged her to shore, pressed his mouth to hers while the cold bit through his clothes. At the hospital, he sat beside her bed, the only person there. He was a single father who could barely pay rent. She turned out to be Victoria Lane, a billionaire no one knew lived completely alone. One reckless act was about to change everything for both of them. Lucas Harper woke at 5:30 that morning like he always did. The alarm never had a chance to ring. He moved quietly through the small house, careful not to wake Mia or his mother Evelyn. The floorboards creaked under his weight no matter how soft his steps were. He pulled on his running shoes in the dark, laced them tight, and slipped out the front door into the cold. The streets were empty. Streetlights still burned yellow against the early fog. Lucas liked this time of day, the silence before the city remembered itself. He ran the same route every morning, down Maple Street to the lake, around the path that circled the water, then back home in time to make breakfast. It kept him sane. It kept him moving forward when everything else felt like it was pulling him under. He reached the lake just as the fog settled thick over the water. The surface looked gray and still, almost solid. Lucas slowed to a jog, his breath coming out in white clouds. That's when he heard it. A splash. Then another. Not the sound of a duck or a fish. Something bigger. Something struggling. He stopped. Squinted through the fog. Saw her then, about 20 feet from shore. A woman, her arms flailing, her head going under and coming back up. She wasn't calling for help. She was just fighting and losing. Lucas didn't think. He kicked off his shoes and dove in. The cold hit him like a fist, knocked the air from his lungs. The water was darker than it looked from shore, murkier. He swam hard, his arms cutting through the freezing lake, his legs kicking against the weight of his clothes. She went under again just as he reached her. He dove, grabbed her coat, pulled her up. She coughed, sputtered, her eyes wild with panic. Lucas wrapped his arm around her chest and started swimming back. She didn't fight him. She just hung there, limp, her body giving up. He dragged her through the water, his muscles screaming, his teeth chattering so hard he thought they might crack. When his feet finally hit the muddy bottom, he half carried, half dragged her onto the shore. He laid her on her back. She wasn't breathing. Her lips were blue. Lucas tilted her head back, pinched her nose, and breathed into her mouth. Once, twice. He pressed his hands to her chest, started compressions. He'd learned this years ago, back when Mia was born, back when he thought knowing CPR was just something responsible parents did. He never thought he'd actually use it. Her body jerked. She coughed, water spilling from her mouth. Lucas turned her on her side, let her get it all out. She gasped, her chest heaving, her whole body shaking. He pulled off his soaked jacket and draped it over her shoulders. It wouldn't do much, but it was something. "You're okay," Lucas said, his own voice shaking. "You're going to be okay." She didn't answer, just stared at him with wide, confused eyes, like she didn't know where she was or how she got there. Lucas pulled out his phone. The screen was wet but still worked. He dialed 911, told them where they were, told them to hurry. Then he sat there beside her, both of them shivering, both of them soaked to the bone, waiting. The ambulance came fast. Paramedics wrapped her in blankets, checked her vitals, loaded her onto a stretcher. One of them asked Lucas if he was coming with them. He looked down at himself, at his wet clothes, at the mud on his hands. He should go home. He should change. He should get back to Mia and his mother. But something stopped him. "Yeah," Lucas said. "I'm coming." He climbed into the ambulance, sat on the small bench while they worked on her. She was awake now, breathing on her own. But she looked lost, scared, like a child who couldn't find her way home. Lucas stayed quiet, didn't ask questions, just sat there while the sirens wailed and the city blurred past the windows. At the hospital, they took her straight back. Lucas stood in the waiting room, dripping water onto the tile floor, his whole body numb. A nurse brought him a blanket and a cup of bad coffee. He wrapped himself in the blanket and sat down. Thought about leaving. Thought about going home. But his legs wouldn't move. An hour passed. Then another. Lucas called his mother, told her he'd be late, told her to get Mia ready for school. Evelyn didn't ask questions. She never did. She just said okay and hung up. Finally, a doctor came out. A tired-looking woman with gray hair pulled back in a bun. She looked at Lucas, at his wet clothes, at the blanket around his shoulders. "You're the one who pulled her out?" the doctor asked. Lucas nodded. "She's stable," the doctor said. "Hypothermia, but we're warming her up. She's lucky you were there." "Can I see her?" Lucas asked. He didn't know why he asked. Didn't know why it mattered. The doctor looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Room 212, but just for a minute." Lucas walked down the hallway, his shoes squelching with every step. Found room 212, knocked softly, heard a weak voice tell him to come in. She was sitting up in bed, wrapped in heated blankets, an IV in her arm. Her hair was still damp, pushed back from her face. She looked different now. Smaller. More human. She turned when he walked in, and something flickered in her eyes. Recognition. Gratitude. Something else he couldn't name. "You saved my life," she said. Her voice was hoarse, scratched raw from the water. Lucas stood by the door, suddenly awkward. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," she said. She shook her head slowly. "Not anyone. Most people would have called for help and waited. You didn't wait." Lucas didn't know what to say to that. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, still dripping onto the hospital floor. "I'm Victoria," she said. "Victoria Lane." The name meant nothing to him. He nodded. "Lucas. Lucas Harper." She studied him, took in his wet clothes, his worn shoes, the exhaustion in his face. "Do you have somewhere you need to be?" "Yeah," Lucas said. "I have a daughter. I need to get home." "A daughter." Victoria's expression softened. "How old?" 7. She nodded, looked down at her hands. "Thank you, Lucas Harper. I don't know how to repay you." "You don't need to repay me," Lucas said. He meant it. "I'm just glad you're okay." He turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. "Wait!" Victoria reached for the small table beside her bed, fumbled with something, pulled out a wallet, started pulling out bills. "Please, let me give you something. For your trouble. For your daughter." Lucas felt something tighten in his chest. He walked back to the bed, gently pushed her hand away. "Keep your money," he said quietly. "If anyone fell into that water, I would have done the same thing. This isn't about money." Victoria looked at him like he was speaking a language she didn't understand. Her hand hovered in the air, still holding the bills. Then slowly, she lowered it. "Okay," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Okay." Lucas left before she could say anything else, walked out of the hospital and into the morning light. The sun had burned through the fog. The city was awake now, traffic building, people rushing to work. Lucas stood on the sidewalk, still wrapped in the hospital blanket, and breathed. He took a bus home. Didn't have money for a cab. The other passengers stared at him, at his wet clothes, at the blanket. But no one said anything. Lucas stared out the window and thought about the woman in the hospital bed. Thought about the fear in her eyes when she was drowning. Thought about the confusion when he refused her money. When he got home, Evelyn was in the kitchen making breakfast. Mia was at the table, eating cereal, her backpack already on. She looked up when Lucas walked in, her eyes going wide. "Daddy, you're all wet," Mia said. "I know, sweetheart," Lucas said. He kissed the top of her head. "I had a little accident. I'm fine." Evelyn looked at him over her shoulder. She was 72, thin and tired, but her eyes were still sharp. She saw everything, knew everything. She didn't ask questions, just handed him a towel. "Go change," Evelyn said. "I'll take Mia to school." Lucas nodded, went to his room, peeled off the wet clothes, and stood under a hot shower until his skin turned red. He thought about Victoria Lane. Thought about the way she looked at him when he refused her money, like he was something strange, something she couldn't quite figure out. He got dressed, went to work, spent the day fixing cars at the garage on 5th Street. His hands were still shaking. His body still felt the cold. But he didn't tell anyone what happened. Didn't tell anyone he'd saved a woman's life that morning. It didn't feel like something worth bragging about. It just felt like something he had to do. That night, after Mia went to bed, Lucas sat at the kitchen table with his mother. She made tea, set a cup in front of him, sat down across from him. "You want to tell me what really happened this morning?" Evelyn asked. Lucas wrapped his hands around the cup, felt the warmth seep into his palms. Then he told her everything. The woman in the water, the hospital, the money she tried to give him. Evelyn listened without interrupting. When he finished, she reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "You did good," she said simply. Lucas nodded, stared into his tea. "She looked at me like I was crazy for not taking the money. Maybe she's not used to people doing things without expecting something back," Evelyn said. "Doesn't make you crazy, makes you decent." Lucas went to bed that night thinking it was over, thinking he'd never see Victoria Lane again, thinking life would go back to normal. He had no idea how wrong he was. 3 days passed. Lucas thought about Victoria Lane less with each one. Life had a way of pulling him back into its rhythm. Wake up, make breakfast, drop Mia at school, work at the garage, pick Mia up, help with homework, make dinner, put Mia to bed, collapse, repeat. There wasn't room in that routine for thinking about drowning women, or hospital rooms, or the strange look in someone's eyes when you refused their money. On the 4th day, someone knocked on his door at 6 in the evening. Lucas was helping Mia with her math homework at the kitchen table. Simple addition. She kept getting distracted, drawing flowers in the margins of her workbook. Evelyn was in the living room watching the news, the volume turned up too loud, because she refused to admit she needed hearing aids. Lucas opened the door and found a man in a dark suit standing on his porch. The man held a large basket wrapped in cellophane, filled with expensive-looking items: fruit, chocolates, wine, a card tucked into the ribbon. "Lucas Harper?" the man asked. "Yeah," Lucas said, confused. "Delivery for you," the man said. He handed over the basket. It was heavier than it looked. "Have a good evening." The man walked back to a black car, parked at the curb, and drove away. Lucas stood there holding the basket, staring after the car. He kicked the door closed with his foot and carried the basket to the kitchen table. Mia's eyes went wide. "Daddy, what's that?" she asked, her math homework forgotten. "I don't know yet," Lucas said. He set the basket down and pulled out the card, opened it. The handwriting was neat, elegant. "Thank you for saving my life. I hope you and your family enjoy these. With deepest gratitude, Victoria Lane." Lucas stared at the card, felt something uncomfortable settle in his stomach. He looked at the basket, at the wine that probably cost more than his weekly grocery budget, at the chocolates in their fancy boxes, at the fruit so perfect it looked fake. "Who's it from?" Evelyn called from the living room. "The woman from the lake," Lucas said. He put the card back in the basket. Evelyn came into the kitchen, moving slowly, one hand on the wall for balance. She looked at the basket, raised her eyebrows. "That's quite a thank you," she said. "It's too much," Lucas said. "Maybe for her it's not," Evelyn said. She picked up one of the chocolate boxes, turned it over, whistled softly at the price sticker still on the bottom. For someone with money, this might be nothing. "It's still too much," Lucas said. Mia reached for a chocolate. Lucas gently stopped her hand. "After dinner," he said. They ate the chocolates that night. Mia said they were the best thing she'd ever tasted. Evelyn agreed. Lucas thought they tasted expensive, which wasn't quite the same as good. But he ate them anyway, because throwing them out seemed wasteful, and keeping them seemed ungrateful. 2 days later, another knock. This time it was a woman in a business suit, younger, carrying a box. Lucas opened the door, and already knew what it was before she said anything. "Delivery for Lucas Harper," the woman said brightly. Lucas took the box. It was from a high-end department store downtown, the kind of place Lucas had never set foot in. Inside were clothes, nice clothes, a winter coat, sweaters, jeans that probably cost more than his rent. Another card. "For your kindness in the cold. Stay warm. VL." Lucas closed the box, handed it back to the woman. "I can't accept this," he said. The woman blinked. "Sir, it's already been paid for." "I don't care," Lucas said. "Please return it." "I can't do that," the woman said. She looked genuinely distressed. "It's a gift. There's no return address." "Then donate it," Lucas said. "Sir, please," Lucas said firmly. "I can't keep this." The woman took the box back, still looking confused. Lucas closed the door and leaned against it. His heart was beating too fast. This was getting out of hand. That evening, he found Victoria Lane's contact information online. She wasn't hard to find. There were dozens of articles about her. CEO of Lane Enterprises, real estate mogul, net worth in the hundreds of millions. Photos of her at charity galas, at business conferences, always alone, always elegant, always composed. Lucas stared at one photo for a long time. She looked different than she had in the hospital. More polished, more distant, like someone who lived in a completely different world. He found a general contact email for her company, sent a message, kept it simple. "Ms. Lane, I appreciate your gratitude, but please stop sending gifts. I don't need anything. I'm just glad you're okay. Lucas Harper." He sent it and felt better. Thought that would be the end of it. The next afternoon, his phone rang. Unknown number. Lucas almost didn't answer. He was under a car at the garage, his hands covered in grease, his back aching. But something made him wipe his hands on a rag and answer. "Lucas Harper?" A woman's voice. Familiar. "Yeah," Lucas said. "It's Victoria Lane," she said. "I got your email." Lucas stood up too fast, hit his head on the undercarriage of the car, swore under his breath. "Ms. Lane, hi. Please, call me Victoria," she said. There was something different in her voice now, less formal, more real. "I'm sorry about the gifts. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." "It's not that," Lucas said. He walked outside the garage, away from the noise. "It's just too much. You don't owe me anything." "I owe you everything," Victoria said quietly. "You saved my life." "Anyone would have done the same thing," Lucas said. He'd said it before. He meant it. "That's not true," Victoria said. "And I think you know it's not true." Lucas didn't know what to say to that. He stood in the parking lot, the phone pressed to his ear, watching traffic pass. "Can I at least buy you coffee?" Victoria asked. Just to say thank you properly. No gifts, no strings, just coffee. Lucas thought about saying no, thought about how much easier it would be to just let this woman disappear back into her world and leave him in his. But there was something in her voice, something lonely, something that reminded him of the way she looked in that hospital bed, small and lost. "Okay," Lucas said. "Coffee." They met 2 days later at a small cafe near the lake. Lucas got there first, ordered a regular coffee, black, sat at a table by the window. He wore his usual clothes, jeans, a flannel shirt, his work boots. He felt suddenly self-conscious, aware of how out of place he must look. Victoria arrived exactly on time. She wore jeans too and a simple sweater, but somehow on her they looked expensive. She saw him and smiled. It changed her whole face, made her look younger, more human. She ordered something complicated at the counter, then sat down across from him. For a moment, neither of them spoke, just looked at each other. Lucas noticed she looked healthier now, color back in her cheeks, life back in her eyes. "Thank you for coming," Victoria said finally. "Thanks for the coffee," Lucas said. She laughed. It was a nice sound. "I think I owe you more than coffee." "You don't owe me anything," Lucas said again. "I keep telling you that." "I know," Victoria said. She wrapped her hands around her cup. "But I need you to understand something. I don't have people in my life who do things without wanting something back. Everyone wants something. Money, connections, favors. You're the first person in I don't know how long who just did something good because it was the right thing to do." Lucas shifted uncomfortably. "I'm not special. I'm just a guy who happened to be there." "You dove into freezing water to save a stranger," Victoria said. "That's not nothing." They sat there for a while, drinking their coffee. Victoria asked about his life. Lucas told her about Mia, about his mother, about working at the garage. He kept it simple, didn't complain, didn't make it sound worse than it was. Victoria listened like every word mattered. "What about you?" Lucas asked. "What were you doing at the lake that morning?" Something flickered across Victoria's face. She looked down at her coffee. "I like to walk there sometimes, early, before the city wakes up." It wasn't the whole truth. Lucas could tell, but he didn't push. Everyone had their secrets. "Do you have family?" Lucas asked. "Someone to take care of you?" "No," Victoria said simply. "It's just me." The loneliness in those words hit Lucas harder than he expected. He thought about his small house, crowded with Mia's toys and Evelyn's books, and the constant noise of living. Thought about how that chaos was also love, how you could have all the money in the world and still have nothing. They finished their coffee, stood to leave. Victoria touched his arm. "Can I see you again?" she asked. "Not as a thank you, just as friends." Lucas thought about it, thought about how different their worlds were, thought about how this probably wasn't a good idea. But he also thought about that look in her eyes, the loneliness. "Yeah," Lucas said, "as friends." Over the next week, Victoria came by the house twice. The first time, she brought flowers for Evelyn and a book for Mia. Nothing expensive, just thoughtful. Evelyn made tea and the three of them sat in the living room while Mia showed Victoria her drawings. Victoria asked Mia about school, about her favorite subjects, about her friends. She listened like a child's words were the most important thing in the world. The second time, Victoria brought nothing but herself. She sat at the kitchen table with Lucas while he helped Mia with homework. She didn't try to help, didn't offer advice, just sat there, watching, like she was studying something she'd never seen before. After Mia went to bed, Victoria and Lucas sat on the front porch. It was cold. Their breath came out in clouds. Lucas offered her a blanket. She wrapped it around her shoulders. "This is nice," Victoria said. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking at the quiet street, at the modest houses, at the ordinary life happening all around her. "What is?" Lucas asked. "This," Victoria said. She gestured vaguely. "All of this. The normalcy. The simplicity. I forgot what this felt like. Feels like bills and broken washing machines to me," Lucas said. But he smiled. "That too," Victoria said. She turned to look at him. "But it's real. Everything in my life is carefully constructed, carefully managed. Nothing is real anymore. Except this. Except you and your family." Lucas didn't know what to say to that. He pulled the blanket tighter around himself. "I grew up in a place like this," Victoria said quietly. "Small house, working parents. We didn't have much. Then I built my company. Made money. More money than I knew what to do with. And somewhere along the way, I lost this. Lost the realness of it." "You can have both," Lucas said. "Money doesn't mean you have to be lonely." "Doesn't it?" Victoria asked. She looked at him. "Everyone who gets close to me wants something. A job, an investment, a piece of what I've built. After a while, you stop letting people get close." "Not everyone is like that," Lucas said. "I know," Victoria said. She smiled. "I met one person who isn't." A week later, Lucas came home from work and found an envelope on his kitchen table. Plain white. His name written on the front in that elegant handwriting he recognized now. Inside was a check, $10,000, and a letter. Lucas read it standing in the kitchen. Mia was at school. Evelyn was napping. He was alone. "Lucas, I know you'll be upset about this. I know you don't want my money. But please understand, this isn't charity. This isn't payment. This is gratitude from someone who has more than she needs, to someone who gave her everything when he had no reason to. Use it for Mia, for your mother, for the house, for whatever you need. You deserve this. You deserve so much more than this. Please don't send it back. You would hurt me more by refusing than by accepting. Victoria." Lucas stood there for a long time, holding the check. His hands were shaking. He thought about sending it back, thought about how insulted he should feel. But then he looked around his kitchen, at the leaking faucet he couldn't afford to fix, at the light fixture that hadn't worked in months, at the window that didn't close all the way, letting cold air seep in. He thought about Mia needing new shoes, about Evelyn's medication costs, about the car that barely ran, about all the small ways he was failing to take care of his family, not because he didn't try, but because trying wasn't always enough. Lucas folded the letter, put the check in his pocket, sat down at the kitchen table, and put his head in his hands. He didn't cry. He just sat there, feeling the weight of it, the gratitude, the generosity, the uncomfortable truth that sometimes pride was a luxury he couldn't afford. That night, he texted Victoria. Just 2 words. "Thank you." She wrote back immediately. "You're welcome." Then another message. "You deserve it." Lucas stared at his phone, thought about Victoria in her big empty house, thought about himself in his small, crowded one. Thought about how strange it was that saving someone's life could lead to this, to friendship, to understanding, to the slow dissolution of the walls people built around themselves. He wrote back, "So do you." Lucas deposited the check the next morning, stood at the bank teller's window, and watched her eyes widen when she saw the amount. She asked if he wanted to speak with a financial advisor. He said no. Just wanted it in his account. Wanted to be able to use it for the things his family needed. The first thing he did was fix the house. Called a plumber for the leaking faucet, an electrician for the light fixture and the outlets that sparked sometimes, a handyman for the window that wouldn't close and the door that stuck in its frame. The workers came and went over the next week. Each time they finished something, Lucas felt a small weight lift. These were problems he'd been carrying for months, sometimes years, telling himself he'd fix them eventually when he had time, or money, or both. Evelyn noticed the changes but didn't comment. She watched the plumber work, watched the electrician test the lights, watched Lucas pay them without wincing at the cost. That evening, she sat down beside him on the couch. "You used her money," Evelyn said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah," Lucas said. "Good," Evelyn said, simply. She patted his knee. "That's what it's for." Lucas bought Mia new shoes, good ones that would last through the winter. She wore them around the house for an hour, refusing to take them off, showing them to her grandmother from every angle. At dinner, she asked why they were getting new things. Lucas told her the truth, or part of it. Told her about the woman from the lake, about how she wanted to say thank you. "Is she rich?" Mia asked, her fork hovering over her plate. "Yes," Lucas said. "Are we going to be rich too?" Mia asked. "No," Lucas said. He smiled. "But we're going to be okay. That's better." Mia thought about this seriously, then nodded and went back to her dinner. Lucas watched her and felt something settle in his chest. She was 7. She deserved to be a kid. Deserved to not worry about money or broken things, or whether they'd be okay. Maybe that's what Victoria's gift really was. Not the money itself, but the space it created. The breathing room. 2 weeks after he deposited the check, Lucas met Victoria for coffee again. Same cafe, same table by the window. She looked different this time, more relaxed, less polished. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore jeans and a sweater that looked old, comfortable, lived in. "You look good," Victoria said when he sat down. "So do you," Lucas said. They ordered their drinks, sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Victoria spoke. "Did you use the money?" she asked. "Yeah," Lucas said. He met her eyes. "Thank you. Really. It helped more than you know." "Good," Victoria said. She smiled. "I'm glad." "Can I ask you something?" Lucas said. "Anything," Victoria said. "Why were you really at the lake that morning?" Lucas asked. "And don't say you like to walk there. I could tell that wasn't the whole truth." Victoria's smile faded. She looked down at her coffee, wrapped both hands around the cup like she was trying to warm them. For a long moment, Lucas thought she wouldn't answer. Then she spoke, her voice so quiet he had to lean forward to hear. "I was thinking about not coming back up," Victoria said. The words hung in the air between them. Lucas felt his stomach drop. He opened his mouth, closed it. Didn't know what to say. "I wasn't sure," Victoria continued. She still wasn't looking at him. "I just walked into the water, kept walking. The cold made me gasp, and I breathed in water, and then I was under, and I thought maybe this was it. Maybe this was how it ended. And then you were there." Lucas reached across the table, put his hand over hers. She looked up at him then, and her eyes were wet. "I'm sorry," Victoria said. "I shouldn't have told you that. That's too much." "No," Lucas said firmly. I'm glad you told me. I'm glad I was there. Me too, Victoria said. She blinked rapidly. I think about it sometimes. About what would have happened if you hadn't been running that morning, if you'd taken a different route, if you'd been 5 minutes later. But I wasn't, Lucas said. I was exactly where I needed to be. Victoria nodded, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. You saved my life in more ways than one, Lucas Harper. Not just pulling me out of the water, but everything after, reminding me what real connection looks like, what kindness looks like, without an agenda. You did the same for me, Lucas said. You reminded me that accepting help isn't weakness, that sometimes people give because they want to, not because they expect something back. They sat there for a long time, hands still touching across the table. The cafe got busier around them. People came and went. Neither of them moved. What are you going to do now? Lucas asked finally. I don't know, Victoria said. Keep building my company, I guess. But differently. I've been thinking about that, about what it means to have all this money, all this success, and still feel empty. Maybe there's a way to do both. To be successful and still be connected to real things, real people. I think there is, Lucas said. You just have to want it. I do, Victoria said. She squeezed his hand. I really do. Over the following month, Victoria became a regular part of their lives. Not in an intrusive way. Not in a way that felt forced or awkward. She just fit. She came for dinner sometimes, helped Mia with art projects, listened to Evelyn's stories about the old days. She brought groceries occasionally, but stopped bringing gifts, stopped trying to pay for things, just showed up as herself. Lucas watched her transform, saw her laugh more, saw her shoulders relax, saw her face light up when Mia ran to hug her. He realized that saving her life wasn't just about pulling her from the water. It was about this, about giving her a reason to stay above the surface. One evening in early December, they all drove to see the Christmas lights downtown. Lucas drove his newly repaired car. Mia sat in the back with Victoria, pointing out her favorite decorations. Evelyn sat in the passenger seat, humming along to the radio. It felt natural, like they'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. They parked and walked through the decorated streets. Mia held Victoria's hand on one side and Lucas's on the other, swung between them every few steps. Victoria bought hot chocolate for everyone. They stood on the corner drinking it, watching people pass, watching the lights twinkle overhead. This is nice, Victoria said. She was looking at Mia, at the chocolate mustache on her upper lip, at the pure joy on her face. Yeah, Lucas said. It is. I never did this growing up, Victoria said. My parents worked too much. We didn't have time for things like this. Well, you're doing it now, Lucas said. Victoria looked at him, smiled. Yeah, I am. That night, after they dropped Victoria at her penthouse downtown, after they got home and put Mia to bed, Lucas sat with his mother in the living room. The house was quiet, warm, fixed. She's in love with you, Evelyn said suddenly. Lucas looked at his mother. What? Victoria, Evelyn said. She was knitting, her needles clicking rhythmically. She's in love with you. You know that, right? No, Lucas said. We're just friends. Friends don't look at each other the way you two do, Evelyn said. She didn't look up from her knitting. I'm old. I see things. Lucas sat with that, thought about Victoria, about the way she laughed at his jokes, the way she listened when he talked, the way she fit into his life like she'd always been there. He thought about the difference between their worlds, about whether something like that could even work. Even if you're right, Lucas said, which I'm not saying you are. It wouldn't work. She's a billionaire. I fix cars. She's a person, Evelyn said. You're a person. The rest is just details. pretty big details, Lucas said. If you say so, Evelyn said. She finished a row and started another. But I think you're scared, and I think she's scared, and I think you're both overthinking it. Lucas went to bed that night thinking about what his mother said. Lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Thought about Victoria in that hospital bed. Victoria at his kitchen table. Victoria holding Mia's hand under the Christmas lights. Thought about how saving someone's life creates a bond that doesn't break. How that bond had grown into something else, something he wasn't ready to name yet. Christmas came. Victoria spent it with them. She arrived in the morning with wrapped presents. Nothing extravagant. Books for Mia. A warm scarf for Evelyn. A new tool set for Lucas. Things that showed she paid attention. Things that showed she cared. They cooked together. Ate together. Watched Mia play with her new toys. Later, after Mia fell asleep on the couch and Evelyn went to bed, Lucas and Victoria sat by the small Christmas tree in the living room. The lights blinked red and green. The house smelled like pine and cinnamon. "Thank you for today," Victoria said, "for letting me be part of this." "Thank you for being here," Lucas said. "You're always welcome." Victoria looked at the tree, at the modest decorations, at the stockings hanging from the mantel. "I used to think I had everything. Big house, successful company, more money than I could spend. But I was wrong. This is everything. This right here." Lucas knew what she meant. He felt it too. The warmth, the connection, the simple fact of not being alone. "Victoria," Lucas said. He turned to face her. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," she said. "Are you happy?" he asked. "Really happy?" Victoria thought about it, then smiled. "Yes, for the first time in years, I actually am." "Good," Lucas said. "You deserve that." "So do you," Victoria said. She reached over and took his hand, held it gently. "You saved my life, Lucas, but you did more than that. You showed me what life could be, what it should be, and I'll never be able to repay that." "You already have," Lucas said. "You gave my family security. You gave us breathing room. You gave Mia new shoes, and Evelyn someone new to tell stories to. You gave me a friend when I didn't know I needed one." They sat there holding hands under the Christmas tree lights. Two people from completely different worlds who found each other in the worst moment and the best moment, all at once. Neither of them said anything about love. Neither of them had to. It was there in the silence, in the way their hands fit together, in the way they'd both learned to accept what the other offered without keeping score. Outside, snow started to fall, soft and quiet, covering the city in white. Inside, Lucas and Victoria sat together in the warm glow of the Christmas lights, holding on to each other, holding on to this moment, holding on to the miracle of still being here. The next morning, Lucas woke early like always, made coffee, looked out the kitchen window at the snow-covered street. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. "Thank you for yesterday. Best Christmas I've ever had." Lucas smiled, wrote back. "Same. See you soon?" "Definitely," she replied. Then another message. "Hey, want to go for a walk? The lake looks beautiful in the snow." Lucas thought about that lake, about that foggy morning months ago, about diving into freezing water, about saving a stranger who became a friend, who became something more important than he had words for. "Yeah," he wrote back. "Let's go to the lake." He bundled up, left a note for Evelyn and Mia, drove to meet Victoria. She was waiting by the water when he arrived, wearing a thick coat and boots, her breath coming out in white clouds. She smiled when she saw him. He smiled back. They walked around the lake together, the same path Lucas ran every morning, the same place he'd pulled her from the water. It looked different in the snow. Peaceful. Beautiful. Like the beginning of something instead of the end. "I come here every morning now," Victoria said. "Walk the path. Remember what happened. Remind myself why I'm still here." "I'm glad you are," Lucas said. "Me too," Victoria said. She stopped walking, turned to face him. "I need to tell you something." Lucas waited, his heart beating faster. "I'm changing things," Victoria said. "The company, my life, all of it. I'm starting a foundation to help single parents, people who work hard but can't catch a break. People like you." "Victoria," Lucas started, but she held up her hand. "Let me finish," she said. "I spent my whole life building wealth. Now I want to build something that matters. And you inspired that. Your kindness, your integrity, your strength. You showed me what really matters." Lucas didn't know what to say. He just reached out and pulled her into a hug. She wrapped her arms around him. They stood there by the frozen lake, holding each other, breathing in the cold air. "Thank you," Victoria whispered against his shoulder. "For everything." "Thank you," Lucas said back, "for giving me a reason to dive in." They pulled apart, smiled at each other, kept walking. The snow fell softly around them. The city woke up slowly, and two people who'd saved each other in more ways than one kept walking together, one step at a time, into whatever came next.